Welcome, it's Abhigyan Mishra, just another quantum computing enthusiast from Quiftix. In this video, we will be dealing with Dutch algorithm, which is the first quantum algorithm devised by David Dutch. You can say this was and the first quantum algorithm which was able to show that how a quantum computer can outperform a classical computer. And it tackles a quite simple problem. However, the main point of this whole algorithm is that we are outperforming a classical computation. So let's move further. So what exactly is the you can say the problem which this algorithm tackles? The problem is quite simple. Let there be a function fx, which is a binary function which works in the domain 0 and 1. So it takes an input in this domain and gives an output in this domain. So we already know that binary function can have four possible pairs. It can either be identity function, which means that it just you can say outputs the input. It can be inverse function, that means it you can say actually it's an inverse function which just inverts the input. It can be a constant zero function, which means that it gives it outputs 0 for any input. It can be a constant 1 function, which means it just outputs 1 for any input. We can further categorize these four pairs into two groups, balanced and constant. It's quite simple and quite easy to understand that in the case of balanced group, the number of zeros and 1 remains same, while in the case of constant, the output is not changed or is not dependent on the input. So the problem which this algorithm tackles is we have to find whether this given fx belongs to the balanced group or the constant group. Quite simple problem. We have tackled this problem many times in you can say classical computation, and it has a simple solution in classical counterpart as well. It's quite simple. If we were to do this classically, we will just evaluate this fx twice, and if the output of this fx was to be same for different input, then it's a constant function. Otherwise, it's a balanced function. Quite simple. But it's the thing to note here is that we had to evaluate fx twice in order to make out whether it's a balanced function or a constant function. Well, that is this particular problem which Dutch algorithm tackles, and it theoretically proves that this particular algorithm, which is a quantum algorithm, can solve this problem with a single iteration over fx. So we outperformed a classical computer while solving this problem. So let's now talk about the Dutch algorithm itself. So first of all, let me just recap about, we already know what a CNOT gate is. This is nothing but a CNOT gate. We have two qubits x and y, where x is a control qubit and y is a target qubit. Whenever x is 1, we flip y along the x-axis. We can also write it in the form of XOR. It's quite simple. It's a bit classical intuition, so I don't think it's quite complicated. It says you can say the x remains same because we are doing nothing to the control qubit, while the y qubit or the target qubit changes to x XOR y. We take this, you can say, the principle and move further, or you can say further explore it. So let us say that if this is nothing but a CNOT gate, but what we have done is the wire which was connecting the control qubit to the, you can say, the control gate, the x gate, we have attached a function f. We have attached a gate which you can say functions in a way similar to that of fx. That is, if there was a function f classical, you can say program fx, and the way it gives output, this gate also gives output in the same manner. So nothing too intuitive. I think it's quite simple to understand then. We just represented the whole circuit with a box, and we just named it fc0. So again, the input qubit x remains same because it's just a control qubit, so nothing happens to it. While the target qubit here, the XOR remains same, but now because the control qubit was you can say passed through the gate fx, so the fx plus XOR y would be the new state of this y. Nothing too intuitive. I think it's quite simple to understand. Now moving further, now here is where we actually apply the power or the superiority of quantum computation. We already know the principle of superposition. We already know that by passing it a given qubit through Hadamard gate, we can apply superposition onto it, which means that it has a probability of being in multiple states simultaneously. So we will use that superposition principle to our advantage. So we just modify the previous circuit minutely. What we did is we added an Hadamard gate to both the qubits, and we were taking a general x and y. Let us say that we had an input 1 and 1, we passed it to a Hadamard gate, and we attached a Hadamard gate to the end and attached an identity gate, because we are not concerned, as you'll see later, that we are not concerned with the output of this, but everything will the output of this particular output is what will give us a solution to the problem. So what we do here is we apply, you can say we divide this whole circuit into parts, where in each segment we describe or we define the state of this two qubit system, to make out how we actually get the output, you can say desired solution to a problem. So the first of all, we start from state A. At point A, you can say a simple 2 qubit state. Let us say it's called omega A. It's nothing but 1 1 and 1 2, where the subscript, you can say subscript denotes the relative position, where this wire state, you can say named 1 and this wire is named 2. So moving this further, so now we have at point B, you can say point B. So in nothing, we just applied Hadamard gate to this qubits. So when we apply Hadamard gate to this, you can say this qubit, it will give us 0 1 minus 1 1 by under root 2, which we know is nothing but minus state. And when we apply the same on this second qubit, we get 0 2 minus 1 2 by under root 2, which is nothing but minus state again. But they are on different wires, therefore different subscripts. We can you can say when we apply tensor product to them and we solve it, we obtain this value 1 by 2 0 1 and so on. Now we define the state at state C, which is after the given, you can say the 2 qubit system, after being superposition, has passed through the oracle. The oracle is nothing but, you can say, a box which contains a circuit within it, the circuit which we you can say drawn in the previous slide. So here we are. So you can see it's quite simple, where we already know, if we use this, you can say we use this diagram. This is nothing but a diagram which we had in the previous slide. So what happens basically is our x remains same, while the y becomes fx XOR y. So nothing too complex here. So if this is nothing but, you can say all these states are in superposition, therefore you can say that all of them will be independently applied or passed through the fx and will have different states or different output. You can for simplicity's sake, you can say that this and this are different and will be independently applied to this you can say to this oracle. So for, you can say 0 1 0 2, nothing too complex. 0 1 remains 0 1 and 0 2 becomes f 0 2, because you can say because f, you can say here it is, here you can say it's x and here it is y, because y is 0, so we won't change it, so it remains f 0 2. The same goes here, where 1 1 remains 1 1, while 0 2 becomes f 1 0 2. Which is nothing but fx 0, because this is x and this is y again, so fx is nothing but f 1 2. Now moving further, things get a bit interesting here, you can say, because here we see that the you can say the y is itself is 1 this time. So because so f used to be nothing, it will be like fx plus XOR y. So y is 1 here, so we get f negation, which is nothing, you can say, but an inverse of f, you can say. I denoted using this sign, so it's nothing but f negation 0 2 plus 1 1. Same rule applies to the last qubit, because the y is 1 here, so we'll get f negation 1 2. So that's it. And moving further, see here, this is nothing but you can say the solution which we got in the previous slide. Now the real important thing, now the actual magic of the computation happens in the next step, or you can say at this point D. So now we already know we have two possibilities for fx. It could either be a constant, it could either be balanced, and it's quite simple that for a constant function, f0 would be equal to f1. So if this was the case, if f0 was equal to f1, which means that if fx was to be a constant function, then if we apply this entity, you can say identity, to our given the state which you obtained in the previous slide, or the point C, it's quite simple, and we can easily factor this equation by using this identity into this you can say new state, where 1 by we represent by nothing but 1 by 2 0 1 minus 1 1 and f0 2 minus f negation of f0 2. Now it's very simple, and it's quite clearly visible that this particular state First of all, this whole system, which was previously entangled, is no longer entangled. It's quite easy to see now, and you can say this is nothing but a 2-qubit system, which we started with a 2-qubit system, and in the end we obtained a state which represents nothing but a 2-qubit system. And this particular point, this you can, if I name it, if this was the first qubit, it's nothing but a minus state. With you see the phase negative, and you see that it could be written as 1/2. It's nothing too difficult, so it's nothing but a minus state. And you can say at fx we're not interested with this, because this is the important thing, and this is the phase, this particular phase will give us a solution. So if now if this was the case, if this was fx was a constant function, then at point D, the first qubit, this particular you can say this particular qubit would be in state minus. This will be in state minus. Exactly. So the first state at D for all if this was a constant function, then this would be in minus state, and we already know that when we apply Hadamard is a reversible gate. We already know that. So when we apply a Hadamard to a, you can say, minus state, we obtain a 1. And vice versa, if this given fx was a balanced function, then we can say that f0 will not be equal to f1, or we can say that f0 is equal to negation of f1, which is the condition of balance case. We again apply this identity to a given state and factorize that given equation to obtain the new equation. Okay, it should be plus here. First of all, it should be plus here. So what we see here is this, we obtain a given q0, which will be here, which it will be plus state. So if we were to apply q0 to Hadamard gate again, we would obtain 0. So to sum up, what actually happened is, after reaching state D, if we were to measure this qubit, this first qubit, and if it was 1, then we can safely say that the given fx is a constant function, and if this measurement is 0, then we can say that this is a balanced function. So what we did here is we used the superposition, you can say the superposition property of the quantum computation to just iterate once through this circuit. You can say we just applied fx, you can say this particular iteration once, and we could easily make out that whether fx was a constant function or fx was a balanced function. So you see that how a simple problem, through the simple problem, we could easily state that how a quantum computer outperforms a classical computer. So there's another algorithm, you can say the extension of Dutch algorithm, which is known as Dutch-Joska algorithm. It's nothing but the same algorithm applied on a multivariable function fx. So that is the reason why we have to the exponent, we have the power tensor n, and we have a power h on tensor n. So nothing too hard. It follows the same core concept. So that's it for this video. And Dutch algorithm is a pretty important algorithm. It the extension of Dutch algorithm will give us Simon's algorithm. The Simon's algorithm later gives us Shor's algorithm. So you can say that it's Dutch algorithm which started everything for quantum computation, and you can say the first algorithm which was able to prove that a quantum computer can outperform a classical computer given that a particular problem exists, because not all problem can be of course solved on quantum computer, or some some you can say problems are better solved in classical computer and using classical computation principles, but there exist some problems which are better tackled in quantum computation, the world of quantum computation. So yeah, that's it also for video, and thank you.